Good evening, everyone. My name is Christy. I'm part of the Student Doctor Network team. Thanks so much to all of you for joining us this evening. Tonight we have with us Julie Gilbert and Katie Post from the Association of American Medical Colleges, or AAMC, and they're here to talk about how to finance medical school as well as how to finance the application process. Julie is a senior education debt management specialist for the AAMC and has over 15 years of financial aid and education debt management experience. She works with the medical school community on issues surrounding education, debt management, and financial education. She strives to promote financial literacy so that students will have a strong financial foundation to repay their educational loan debt and balance their financial responsibilities. She manages the communication and marketing strategy and designs and edits materials for the FIRST, or Financial Information Resources, Services, and Tools program. Katie Post is the Communications and Program Support Specialist for the American Medical College Application Service, or AMCAST, and is a part of the pre-med outreach group at the AAMC. She works to help pre-health students actualize their goals of becoming physicians by providing clear and helpful information about the application process and the pre-med services the AAMC offers. Katie specializes in social media and web communications. You can connect with her and the AAMC pre-med team on Facebook and on Twitter, where their handle is at AAMC pre-med, for information and resources about a career in medicine. Thanks so much to both you guys for being here tonight.
Sure, thank you. Thank you, Christy.
We are going to pause a couple of times in the presentation to give all of you the opportunity to ask questions of our speakers. If you have questions, you can submit those in the questions box in the control panel on the right of your screen. We'll get to as many of those as we have time for. We will also be focusing primarily on questions that will be applicable to a large number of people in the audience. But if you have questions regarding your specific situation, I'll give you contact info at the end to where you can get those answered as well. So ask away, and we'll get to those as we can, and I will turn things over here to Julie and Katie.
Great, thanks so much, Christy. Hello, everyone. I'm Katie, and as Christy mentioned, I'm here with my colleague, Julie, and we're here to talk with you about successfully managing the cost of applying to and attending medical school and how to use some of the AAMC's resources to do so. As a bit of background, the Association of American Medical Colleges, or AAMC, represents all MD granting medical schools in the country and provides services and tools to help you prepare for and apply to medical school, be a successful medical student, and apply to and manage your residency. We are here to help you navigate your path to medical school, residency, and your career. You know that your decision to pursue a career as a health professional is a huge financial and time commitment, so how will you find funding and pay off your student loans? Knowing the facts about the cost of medical school and your financial aid options is key, and you all have taken a great first step by joining us today as we are going to talk about just trying to change the slide. There we go. We're going to talk about the cost of applying to and attending medical school. Then we will explore financing options, how to borrow smart, and how to manage your money wisely. We'll then talk about the importance of credit and touch on forgiveness and repayment programs. We'll stop for a couple questions intermittently during the presentation, as Christy mentioned, and then we'll open the floor to all questions at the end and answer as many as we have time for. Those that we aren't able to get to will be included in a transcript that we put on our website in about a week, and we'll also have this video recorded. I think SCN is going to put it on YouTube, and there'll also be a link to it from the AAMC site as well. All right, so first, know the cost. Let's take a look at the actual cost of applying to medical school. Some of the fixed expenses include the cost of the MCAT, which is the required admissions test, the cost of applying to medical school with AMCAST, which is the American Medical College Application Service, as well as secondary application fees and college service fees that your undergraduate schools may charge to send official transcripts, etc. MCAT registration fees vary depending on how early you register for the exam. So the earlier you register, the more flexibility you'll have if you need to reschedule your test date, which means that you'll run into fewer rescheduling costs. The AAMC recommends that you try to schedule at least 60 days before your intended test date. And for more information about MCAT registration, you can visit our website at aamc.org/MCAT. But something to keep in mind when you're thinking about registration is earlier is often better in terms of flexibility and is also generally less expensive if you have to change something. Application fees include those to use the AMCAST application. So AMCAST is a centralized application service that allows you to fill out one application and send it to as many schools as you choose. In order to submit this AMCAST application, you must pay a processing fee, which does include one medical school designation. So if you apply to one school, you only have to pay that one fee. However, if you choose to apply to more than one school, which many do, there is an additional fee for each medical school designation. Most schools will also ask you to fill out a secondary application, which also generally include fees. And you should also be aware that you'll have to travel to these schools to attend in-person interviews as part of the application process, and in doing that may need to purchase interview-appropriate attire and other things to support those interviews. There are also variable costs that you may incur depending on how you choose to prepare to apply to med school. So you may choose to study for the MCAT exam by purchasing official test prep materials from AAMC, or you may choose to take an MCAT prep course. You may choose to subscribe to the Medical School Admissions Requirements website to compare schools and programs. You may also choose to buy a subscription to Pivio, which is an online portfolio service. Also, once you've been accepted to medical school, you may have moving expenses. All of these costs, again, depend on how you go about this process of applying, but should be things that you're thinking about while you are outlining your path. For a more detailed breakdown of the cost of applying to med school, visit aamc.org/first/applying-cost. So given these expenses, now's a good time to talk about the AAMC's Fee Assistance Program. The Fee Assistance Program helps those who, without financial assistance, would be unable to take the MCAT exam, apply to medical schools that use AMCAST, or gain access to the Pivio system. One important thing to note about this program is that fee assistance benefits are not retroactive. Therefore, it's very important that you apply for fee assistance well before you register for the MCAT or submit your AMCAST application, or really pay for any of the other benefits that are covered by this program, as we can't write you a check retroactively for these fees. It has to be done beforehand. So make sure if you're considering applying for fee assistance that you apply well before doing any of those other things. If you are approved for fee assistance in 2015, you will receive reduced MCAT registration fees, the official guide to the MCAT exam, the 4th edition, which is for the 2015 exam, and also a suite of other MCAT products from the AAMC to help you prepare for the exam. You will also get complimentary access to the Medical School Admissions Requirements website, as well as a fee waiver for all AMCAST fees for one application submission, and that one application submission includes 15 school designations. It's important to note that many medical schools also waive their secondary application fees for those who qualify for fee assistance. So even though many of them do charge for those secondary applications, if you are qualified for fee assistance and receive that program benefits, schools often waive those costs. You'll also get a reduced subscription to Pivio for up to 2 years. And again, Pivio is an electronic portfolio service from the AAMC that allows you to organize, archive, and transfer important information throughout your medical career. I also want to mention that if you are awarded fee assistance and you are applying for testing accommodations for the MCAT, say you're applying for extra time or something of the sort, you'll have access to up to $500 towards an updated psychoeducational or medical evaluation if it's required to support that MCAT accommodations application. If you were awarded and used all of the fee assistance program benefits available to you, you would save more than $2,000. So it's definitely a great program to look into if you think you qualify. There's more information about these benefits and how you use them on the website. But again, they are not retroactive, so apply well before you purchase, subscribe, register, or submit anything else with the AAMC, as you will not get a refund. So how long can you use these benefits? Starting this year in 2015, you can now use your fee assistance program benefits for up to 2 calendar years. So if you receive fee assistance this year, your benefits will expire on December 31st, the year after they are awarded, so December 31st, 2016. You are eligible for fee assistance if you are a U.S. citizen, a U.S. national, a lawful permanent resident of the United States, or a green card holder, or if you've been granted refugee or asylum status or DACA status by the U.S. government. Award approval is tied directly to the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services poverty level guidelines. So in 2015, you will be granted fee assistance if each household reported on your application has a total family income in 2014 that was 300% or less than the 2014 national poverty level for your family size. So if your application meets these criteria, you will receive fee assistance benefits. That's one of the great things about the program, is that there's not a cap on the number of awards that the AAMC gives out per year. It's if you qualify and meet those criteria, you will receive the award. One thing to note is that the fee assistance program, unlike some federally funded programs, does not draw distinctions based on your dependent or independent tax status. So that means that parental financial information and parental supporting documentation are required. Parental information is viewed separately or independently from applicant data, but it also must fall within those eligibility guidelines. And I want to make it pretty clear that this parental information requirement cannot be waived on the basis of your marital status, age, or tax filing status. So definitely something to consider if you're planning on applying. But again, check with the Department of Health and Human Services poverty level guidelines. And if you think you're within the margin, I would encourage you to apply, because those benefits are very useful during the application process. So go to AAMC.org/FAP, FAP, to learn more about the fee assistance program eligibility requirements, program benefits, application process, and to actually start your application. To apply to fee assistance program, you will complete and submit an online application. And this year we have a new easy-to-use application interface, which is pretty exciting. Once AAMC has all of your preliminary information from this online application, we'll determine whether or not you qualify for the program. And if you do, you'll then be asked to submit financial documentation, tax documents, etc., to support that application. The AAMC will then evaluate and let you know the outcome of your application within 3 weeks. Make sure to consult the application guide when filling out your online application, and review the What You Need to Apply section of the website for more information about the types of financial documentation you may be asked to provide. If you have questions during this process, remember that we're here to help. You can call, email, message, or tweet us. All right, so let's get back to the cost of attendance. We recommend that you be an educated consumer while shopping around for a medical school. You should know the ins and outs of the cost of attendance for the schools that you're considering. This chart here shows that the cost of attendance at a private institution exceeds that of a public institution. However, it's important to be aware that while some schools' stated costs are high, they may have more resources to provide financial assistance and aid. Private isn't always better than public, and public does not always mean cheaper than private. Just like undergraduate schools, finding the right match for you is key. For this reason, it's very important to research the real cost of the schools that you're looking at. This includes the published tuition and fees, as well as the costs of books and supplies, housing, transportation, and other living expenses. Basically, you want to look at what you'd actually be paying to go to that school in total. Questions to ask potential medical schools include, does the school have a scholarship fund? Do they help defray the cost of funding by funding research opportunities? And perhaps the most insightful question that you can ask them is, what is the most recent graduating class's average amount of debt? So the class that just graduated from that institution, what's that average amount of debt for that class? It's really important to look at average debt for the medical school in addition to that average cost. You can access this information and more from the Medical School Admissions Requirements website, which you can find at aamc.org/MSAR. This guide collects all the data about cost of attendance and about graduating class debt directly from medical schools. So this slide can be a bit intimidating. However, you should know that the majority of medical school graduates complete their education with student loans. In the graduating class of 2014, nearly 84% of students reported leaving med school with educational debt. So it's likely that you might find yourself in a similar situation. But you should know that if you choose to borrow to finance your medical education, you are in very good company. And just another plug for knowing the data about the schools that you're applying to is that the AAMC collects data about these debt figures each year, and you can find this information on our website if you're interested. After looking at the previous slide about the current state of debt, you may be wondering, will I be able to afford paying back all those student loans? What's my starting salary going to look like? How am I going to be able to afford this? And this slide is supposed to emphasize our answer to that first question of, will I be able to afford to pay back my student loans? Because we think that answer is yes. You can pay off your student loans, and data indicate that there is a very low default rate for physicians paying back their student debt, which tells us that most people are successful in doing that. The point to take away from this slide is that the average medical school graduate should be able to live comfortably and repay their student loans. All right, so at this point, we're going to take a brief pause and answer a few questions from you all about the cost of applying to or attending medical school or the fee assistance program. So if any of you have questions on those topics, we'll answer a couple now.
Great. All right, and just to remind you, you can ask those questions in the questions box on the right of your screen, and focusing on specifically cost-related questions right now. So our first question is, how long in advance do we need to apply for the fee assistance program?
That's a good question. So it really just depends on when you are hoping to register for the MCAT exam or submit your AMCAST application. So let's go with the AMCAST example. The AMCAST application opens in May. You can start submitting it in early June. If you are hoping to get your application in early June, you want to make sure that you have your fee assistance award all set up, ready to go, So given that fact, work 3 weeks backward. So give us 3 weeks to process your fee assistance application. So maybe you'd be applying for fee assistance in early May. Again, earlier with these things is always better. It's always better to give yourself more time than you anticipate depending on the volume of applications we get. You just don't want to be right up at the last minute for these sorts of things. So think about when you want to use fee assistance and then work backwards maybe 3 or 4 weeks, and that's when you should be thinking about applying. I also want to say that you can reapply for fee assistance. So if you apply for AMCAST this year and for some reason don't get in, then you can apply next year and use that benefit again.
Very good. Our next question asks, what was the website you said that lists the debt students at med schools leave with?
So that's the medical school admissions requirements guide, and you can find that on the AAMC website. It's a AAMC product or service, I guess. We host it for our website, and you can use it to compare schools. So you can look at their curriculum and the requirements for admission and all that sort of thing. But we also have information about debt and cost. And again, that's AAMC.org/MSAR.
Great, and I can include that there's a follow-up email that will go out tomorrow. Thanks for attending the webinar, and I can include that info and some of these links that are on the PowerPoint in that email. So be on the lookout for that. Okay, our next question. When applying for financial aid from the medical schools themselves, do we need to provide our parents' income information? Is there an expectation that our parents will contribute to paying for medical school?
This is Julie, and I'm going to answer that question. Yes, even though medical students, applicants are independent students because they're going to a professional school, they're considered graduate professional students. Even though they're independent for federal aid, many schools will ask for or require parental information.
Okay, is that school dependent, or is that fairly across the board?
Right, it's based upon the school. Not all schools do, but most likely students will be asked for that information.
Okay, all right. Next question, does the fee assistance program have a strict cutoff at 300% over the poverty line? Do they also take into account siblings in college and other factors other than parental income?
So in order to determine eligibility, we do factor in it's for the family size. So however many dependents are listed on your tax returns or your parents' tax forms, that is factored into the eligibility requirements. There's more details about that online and in the application as well, but we do consider your family size as well.
Great. Our next question asks, are federal student loan limits high enough to cover the med school tuition and living expenses since students are unable to work?
Yes, we're actually going to go over that a little bit more in the next section, but students can borrow up to the cost of attendance through the federal loan program, and if they reach their maximum through the federal direct loan program, then there are other alternatives. There's another federal program that we'll discuss, and there's other alternatives as well.
Okay, good. Where can I find which medical schools offer fee waivers for the secondary application?
So that's largely dependent on the school, and if you are awarded fee assistance, then that's when you'll kind of reach out to the schools that you're applying to and see if they'll waive that secondary application cost. I won't say this is universal, but generally, schools don't just waive those costs because the fee assistance program indicator is something that they look for as kind of a justification of, okay, we'll waive this cost for you. Again, that should be a conversation that you have with a school once you have been awarded fee assistance.
Okay, and this one will be our last question for this section. Will applying for the fee assistance program now be in time for using the resources to register for the new MCAT?
So registering for the new MCAT should open, I believe they announced that registration date a couple of days ago, and if you are applying for fee assistance now, it's likely that we'll be able to turn your application around. Again, it is largely dependent on the type of financial documentation that we need from you, so I can't promise anything, but if you are hoping to get that registration done when MCAT opens soon, then I would recommend applying for fee assistance soon, or now. If there are other questions about fee assistance or cost of applying, cost of attending medical school, we can answer more of those at the end as well. All right.
Okay, so we're going to go forward and we're going to take a look at exploring the financing options. During medical school, you're going to look at applying for financial aid the same as you would be applying as an undergraduate student in many ways. First of all, we always suggest that you turn to the financial aid office for assistance at the school that you're looking at applying to. That's one of your best resources, and they can tell you specific information about their school. You are going to need to fill out your FAFSA form. That's the free application for federal student aid. For some of you that have been through this before, you're familiar with the process, and some of you this may be new to you. But the FAFSA form is what will determine what the schools use to determine your aid eligibility. Like I said previously, you are going to be considered an independent student, but schools may still ask and require parental information to determine eligibility for some of their aid programs. It's really important that you're aware of the deadlines that schools have for completing the FAFSA form. Many times this information is available on the school's financial aid website, so we urge you to check that out as well, and to talk to the financial aid office. Even when you're at the schools for interviews, that's a great time to stop into the financial aid office. I recommend making the financial aid office your friend. You can also research and apply for outside scholarships, and you can start looking into those now. I have some information for you about how to do that, and we can go over that in just a second. So there's different types of financial aid options for paying for medical school. First of all, you will probably want to look at the grants and scholarships. These are types of funding that you do not, in most cases, have to pay back as long as you meet the requirements. Some of them are based upon need, and some of them are based upon merit. There's also the federal student loans, which I alluded to. There's the direct student loan, which is an unsubsidized loan, and students can take that out in their name. They can borrow up to the cost of attendance, and again, if they reach the maximum at any point, then that's when other options become available, such as taking out a Direct Plus loan, perhaps being eligible for a Perkins loan, depending upon eligibility. There's also loans for disadvantaged students. There's also primary care loans. These are all types of loans, and you can take a look at the loan programs. We have information on the FIRST website, which is AAMC.org/FIRST, FIRST. The other types of aid that you might want to think about is turning to your family. Sometimes family might have plans of giving you some money or helping you. Having those conversations now is important so that you're not surprised later on. There are also some service-based aid programs, such as if you are willing to provide a service commitment, you may be able to get some loan assistance, meaning if you take out a loan, have some of that money paid back if you serve and you provide a service. Some of these things include the National Health Service Corps, the Indian Health Services, the military offers programs, National Institutes of Health, NIH, and VA are also possibilities. Some people do look at credit cards is an option. However, I urge you to be very careful about that. It is not considered the best way to go, and we're going to talk about credit cards later. So I really urge you to be careful about that. There's another option that some people turn to are alternative or private loans. Again, we urge you to usually look at the federal loans first. In some cases, private loans may be an option for students, but upon the situation. We actually have videos on the first talking about whether or not a private loan is best for you and what the difference between private loans and direct or federal loans, what the differences are. So you might want to check those out as well. So one of the most important things is to borrow smart. And what I mean by that is thinking about what you actually need. One of the misconceptions that students have is after they complete their FAFSA form, they'll get an award letter from all the schools that they listed on their FAFSA application. And just because you're eligible for a certain amount of a loan, it doesn't necessarily mean that you want to take the full amount of the loan. You don't want to borrow just because you're eligible. You want to borrow for what you actually need. And sometimes people forget about that. It's easy to do, but it's harder to pay back when you have more loan debt, especially when you're a first-year resident and you're not making as much as you would be as a full practicing physician. So those are some things to keep in mind. You can always decline a loan or a certain amount of your loan, a certain amount that you were awarded. And if you find later on that you have an emergency and you need some additional funding, you can go back to the financial aid office and ask if you can receive that funding that you had declined originally. Keep in mind, when you accept loans, it can affect your eligibility for other aids. So what I mean by that is if you take a private loan that has a higher interest rate loan or a higher interest rate and it's already dispersed, you may not be eligible for other types of aid. So be very careful. Talk to the financial aid office. If you have any questions at all, that's what they're there for. You want to avoid forfeiting the lower rate loans for higher rate debt. That is one important thing to think about, is knowing the interest rates, knowing the terms, knowing the conditions of the loans. And again, a lot of that information can be found on the FIRST website. We have fact sheets that can help you understand this information. When I say borrow smart, we usually think of it this way. We think of borrowing or looking at free money going in the direction of higher interest rate loans. So this slide just shows you, of course, you'd want to look for the free money, such as the scholarships and grants. Then you could look to Perkins, primary care loans, loans for disadvantaged students, because they are lower interest rate loans. And just as a side note, the information for primary care loans and the loans for disadvantaged students is found on the HRSA website. It's hrsa.gov. From there, you can look at what some people refer to still as a Stafford loan. It's actually a direct loan. It's an unsubsidized loan. That's the loan that's in the student's name. And you don't start paying that back until 6 months after you graduate. From there, you would take a look at possibly, if you need additional funding, a Direct Plus loan. This is also in the student's name. With this loan, they will do a credit check to see if you have any type of adverse credit. So we're going to talk about credit in a little bit, because it does or could possibly impact your eligibility for a plus loan. From there, you look at the higher interest rate loans if you need any additional funding. But private loans may or may not carry higher interest rates than direct loans. They may carry fixed or variable rates. And the other one would be credit cards, which in most cases these days are probably a variable rate unless they suck you in with a 6-month teaser rate of a 0% or a very low interest rate. So you need to be very careful about, again, looking at a credit card to finance your education. Okay, so let's take a look at the interest rates This is for the 2014-2015 year. As I said, the Perkins loan is the lower interest rate loan. It's a 5% loan, but not everybody is eligible for a Perkins loan. The school has to participate in the program, and you have to be eligible for it. So not everybody will see that loan on their award letter. From there is the Stafford Loan, also known as the direct unsubsidized loan. This is a loan that's in the student's name. Once the loan is dispersed for the 2014-2015 year, it has a fixed rate of 6.21%. You don't start paying this loan back until 6 months after you graduate. However, interest is accruing on this loan because it is an unsubsidized loan. The Direct Plus loan has a higher interest rate. This is a loan that is also taken out by a student, but this is the one where they will do a credit check to see if you have any type of adverse credit. This rate is fixed at 7.21%. Now, these interest rates for the next year can change. Rates can change every July 1st, but once the loan is dispersed, it's fixed at that rate for that particular year. And again, primary care loans and loans for disadvantaged students are also fixed at 5%, so they fall into the Perkins bucket that we have here on the slide. You do have 10 years in most cases for a standard repayment term to pay back the student loan. However, there are many options for repayment. We have a number of repayment strategies. We have a number of repayment fact sheets and options to show you. We're not going to go into details about those, but they are found on the FIRST website as well. And again, that's aamc.org/FIRST. The reason we talk about interest is because of this process called capitalization. Interest rates are really important because of this process. As Katie showed you earlier, the median amount of debt for the class of 2014 was $180,000. That means they borrowed $180,000 while they were in school for the 4 years. Those loans, since they're unsubsidized, accrued interest. They accrued $28,300 worth of interest. So when those students graduated, they had a loan balance of $208,300. Capitalization is something that is going to happen, and the way that you can minimize that is by taking out loans with lower interest rates. Possibly, if you can afford to, while you're in school, make a payment on your interest. So you're more than welcome to pay your interest on a loan. You will not get a bill for it. You will get a statement once your loan has been dispersed. You can also, and I urge you to do this, once you do have a loan, you will have a servicer. That's the person that you would make, or not person, that's the organization that you would be sending your payment to. Once you know your servicer, I highly recommend that you go online and create an account so that you can view your loan information. You can view how much interest is accumulating on your loans, and if you choose to, then you can make payments. So when your birthday rolls around and you get some money and you don't know what to do with it, you can send in an interest payment on your loan to help you out later on. So just keep this slide in mind when you think about accepting the loans that you're eligible for and thinking, do I really need to borrow all this money, or could I take less and look later on if I need more and go back to the financial aid office. So the next part of this presentation is really, it goes hand in hand with financial aid in the respect that managing your money, making wise choices now can help you as you go forward, whether it's while you're in school, whether you graduate, when you finish med school. These are things that can help you throughout, but they can also help you if you are looking at some types of loans that do require you to have good credit. So we're going to talk about some of those things as we go forward. The very first thing is to help you so that you can stay organized. If you have federal student loans now and you signed on the dotted line, but you don't know how much you've borrowed, you don't know how much interest, if any, has accrued on any of those loans, You can find that information out by going to this website. It's nslds.ed.gov. This is a repository of all, or I should say most, of your federal loans. And this is like the first step to understand where you are and where you're going, because as you borrow more, any additional loans that you do borrow that are federal loans will show up in on this database. What will be shown when you log in, you're going to log in with your Social Security number, your date of birth, the first 2 letters of your last name, and currently it's your FAFSA PIN. Later on it will be a FAFSA or, an FSA ID. But you'll enter that information and then you'll see the list of loans that is applicable to you under the federal program. Keep in mind that this information is showing you the current lender, the current servicer, again, the organization that you'll be paying your loan back to. It is not real-time data because of how the agents or the different services report their information. If you want real-time data, you would actually need to contact your servicer or, again, go online and take a look at the account if you've set one up. Another way to help you stay organized once you know this information is you can use the MedLoans Organizer and Calculator. This is actually a tool from the AAMC that can help you make decisions about what you want to borrow, maybe the amounts that you might be able to say, oh, I don't think I'm going to borrow that $5,000 this year. What is it going to do to my payments? Some people challenge themselves to not borrow $5,000 per year, which you'd be at less than you'd have less $20,000 at the end, and you can see what that would do for your actual monthly payment when it's time to pay back. So this calculator shows a lot of options, but it was specifically designed for medical students and residents because it actually takes in the residency portion of repayment. So when students are in residency, they have different options with their loans. We're going to talk about that, and this calculator takes that into consideration. So I urge you to check this out. It's free to use once you're in medical school. You can actually use it now. You just can't save your data unless you choose to pay for a subscription. The subscription, though, is only $9.99 for 4 years. So while you are preparing and planning, one of the very best things that you can do is think about how you're spending your money now. Keeping track of your daily spending is important. You can use we have fact sheets that are on our website. We have a budgeting worksheet that's also interactive. We also have a collaboration with SALT, which is a financial education program, and they have a lot of budgeting materials as well. So I urge you to take a look at what you actually are spending. By having a spending plan, you can actually control your overall spending by putting it in writing, reviewing it, making sure if you have any leaks, and what we refer to leaks as are things that you spend money on that you're not really consciously aware of. And we all do it most of the time. So putting it in writing helps you see that. And then you want to go back and review your budget or your spending plan regularly because you might see that you need to make some adjustments. If you live like a student while you are a student, then you won't have to live like a student when you're not. So how do you create your budget? Well, first of all, you have to take a look at what your total income is. And some of you are going to say, well, I know that as a medical student, I'm not going to have an income because I'm not going to be able to work. And that may be true, but in this case, we would say, what is your income based upon how much financial aid you have? So financial aid is the amount of money that you have to spend for that month, and any other type of income that you might have. If your parents are going to give you money or grandparents or whatever. Then you want to subtract your total expenses. That would be like your rent, your electricity, the amount that you're spending on your food. And anything that you are required to pay, a fixed expense, if you have a car payment, that type of thing. Anything that's left over is your discretionary income, and that's what you get to decide to spend on those types of leaks that you might have. Hang on one second. We are having technical difficulties here. Get a preview of what's coming. Close your eyes. Okay, there we are. So knowing what your discretionary income is helps you with these types of things, knowing what your spending leaks might be. Think about this. If you go out and buy a cup of coffee and you buy coffee at a gourmet coffee shop and you're spending $5 a day, 5 days a week, $100 a month, 10 months, that's $1,000 a year. Over 4 years of medical school, that's $4,000. Think about the alternatives. What can you do to not spend as much money? Well, maybe you want to make that coffee at home. If you do that, you might spend only $100 a year or $400 in 4 years. That's a savings of over $3,600 in 4 years. So you need to take a look at some different options that you might have, and this doesn't just go for coffee. It goes for maybe when you're deciding where you want to live. We all might want to live alone because we might not want a roommate, but you might need to save some money by getting a roommate. Carpooling or using public transportation, buying generic food, things like that. So keep those things in mind as you're looking at your budget. This is the website that I was referring to, the SALT website. We are collaborating with them, and you can sign up for an account. It's a free account and get into financial literacy information. So we have reached the end of that section, and we will take questions now.
I'm thinking maybe for the sake of time, should we have you guys go ahead and finish, and then we'll do as many questions as we have time for at the end, or would you rather do, okay.
No, that's fine. We'll get the PowerPoint back up. Okay, so now we're going to talk a little bit about credit because this goes hand in hand with borrowing loans. You want to check your credit report. This is something you can do now. Annualcreditreport.com is a free website. It's a free place for you to download your credit report. There's 3 different credit bureaus, and you can get a report from each of the credit bureaus once a year for free. So take a look now. It helps you determine whether or not you're on the right track, how much debt you have. Sometimes people find things on their credit report that they didn't know was there. Sometimes people find out that they're a victim of identity theft because they pulled their credit report. A credit score is very important. It's actually possible that you can improve your credit score while you're in medical school. And the reason for that is because if you're making wise decisions and you're not spending a lot of money and you're not taking out a lot of loans or credit cards, you are making payments on time, whether it's a cell phone bill, paying your electric bill, these types of things can improve your credit score. So keep that in mind. One of the most important things is your credit score when a lender goes to determine whether or not you're going to be approved for a loan. As I said before, the direct unsubsidized loan, there is no credit check for that. You will be eligible for that. But if you need additional funding, like the PLUS loan or a private loan, they will take a look at credit. You can improve your score by paying your bills on time, paying down any debt that you have. So if you have credit card debts currently as an undergrad student, I highly urge you to pay them off as quickly as you can and to not spend additional money, because once you get into med school and you're not working, you're still going to have that debt and you'd still have to make a payment on it. So you want to manage your cards, if you have any credit cards, very carefully. Think about this. If you go out and charge a balance on your credit card of $5,000 and you have an 18% interest rate and you make the minimum monthly payment, it will take you a little over 22 years to repay that in full. That $5,000 will actually have a total repayment cost of $12,000. So think about it. Is it really worth it to charge that $5,000, whatever it was that you purchased? Keep those things in mind and be wary of making just a minimum payment. If you're going to charge something, know that you can pay it off so that you don't have to worry about the outstanding debt. Again, we have fact sheets on the website that can help you with budgeting and understanding credit, and we urge you to take a look at those. One of the other things that I urge you to do early on, even prior, before you get to medical school, before you even apply for medical school, is to explore some of the loan forgiveness and loan repayment options. There are many programs out there that could offer you some assistance. Again, like I said before, some are service-oriented, so if you are going to make a service commitment, they may help pay back some of your loans. Some are through a scholarship, and some are through forgiveness or repayment programs. The AAMC has a repayment website, or excuse me, a repayment programs website. It's that AAMC.org ST loan, and that breaks up different programs by state and federal agencies, as well as by the type of program it is, whether it's repayment, loan forgiveness, or scholarships. And then the other websites that are listed here are just some other options to look into as far as repayment goes of your student loans. There is support along the way, so if you need help, we urge you to contact the AAMCs and use these resources. You can use the Aspiring Docs information, which is for students that are considering applying to med school. You can use the studentloans.gov. That's actually the federal student loan website, which is a very good resource for student loan information and financial aid information. We have careers in medicine through the AAMC so that you can learn about different careers. As I mentioned, the Med Loans Organizer and Calculator, and in general, the FIRST website. We have a lot of resources, and I urge you to check that out. So with that said, we will take any additional questions that you have.
Schools have a financial resource advisor that students can go to get advice and future planning regarding their debt and student loans.
The medical schools, many medical schools actually have a financial aid officer specifically for medical students. Sometimes they're combined with other programs, but generally speaking, yes. There may be some schools that have that may have a branch campus, and so like a main office would be handling it. But I urge you to get on the school's website. They should have contact information and would be very happy to assist you.
Very good. Our next question, does the fee assistance only cover the application process for MD schools, or does it cover DO schools as well?
That's a great question. So fee assistance program only covers medical schools that use the AMCAST application. So those are MD granting schools. The AAMC represents MD granting institutions, so we don't have any pull over the DOs.
Okay, thanks. Where can I find resources for financial assistance for international students?
This is very good as well. We have a fact sheet on this on the Aspiring Docs website, and also a link to it from the FIRST website. I urge you to talk to the schools, because if you are an international student, there may have different financing options for you, because you may not be eligible for some types of aid, such as the Federal Student Aid Program. But some schools may have institutional programs. So again, talk to the financial aid office at those schools. And again, if you go onto the FIRST website, we have a link to the SALT program. They actually have a lot of searches for scholarships, and international students is one of those searches.
Very good.
I was reading the question ahead of time. Sorry about that, Christy. The same thing can be said for minority students for scholarship information. Again, talk to the financial aid office. Use the SALT resource on the FIRST website. Use a lot of the undergraduate scholarship resources as well. There are many out on the web. And talk to your current financial aid office as well. They may have some other options for you.
Great. Our next question asks, if we plan to apply outside of the U.S. and the Caribbean, would this fee assistance program be of benefit?
So in that case, you could definitely use the fee assistance program for the MCAT. You could also use it to gain access to the PIVIO system, which allows you to keep track of everything, keep it organized online. It won't be as helpful because you can't apply to those schools with AMCAST, or those schools also don't show up in the medical school admissions requirements website, but you could still use that waiver for the MCAT and get those MCAT prep products and stuff like that.
Okay, thanks. Their next question: if accepted into the fee assistance program, will the 2-year benefits begin and end in the same month? For example, if you get accepted in April 2015, would it end in April 2017, or is it a January to December, even if you're accepted midway through the year?
That's a great question. So they always expire December 31st, the year after you were awarded. So say you apply this year and receive the fee assistance program in March, you'll have those benefits to use throughout this entire year and then all of next year until December. So again, December 2016 is when they'd expire. You can also apply for fee assistance and get it in December of this year. So if you apply December 2015, you'd get that award, and you could use it for about a year because it would expire on that December 31st of 2016. It's always December 31st.
Okay, thanks. Our next question: according to the figures in this PowerPoint, there's a $60,000 discrepancy between the full-year cost of public schools and the average debt of students who attend. How is that amount being made up?
I think you're referring to the tuition and fees and then the total cost of attendance. I believe that might be what you're referring to. Tuition and fees is one part of the cost of attendance, but cost of attendance actually includes tuition and fees, room and board, transportation, and miscellaneous expenses. So there are some additional expenses incurred there. And public and private schools, generally speaking, the tuition component is going to be different. So there's going to be a larger variance there.
Okay. Our next question asks, is the parent ever responsible for the repayment of student loans?
If the loan is in the student's name, it is the student's responsibility. If the parent chooses to pay back the student loan for the student, that is awesome for you. But just remember, whatever is in your name is your responsibility. It's on your credit report. It is your debt obligation.
All right, and this probably will be our last question. Has all of the information on the MSAR been updated to match the current MCAT 2015 scoring system?
So MCAT is usually updated at the beginning of April. I'm not quite sure if this question is referring to what schools will look for in terms of the MCAT 2015 scores. We don't know that information. We can't know that information just because we haven't had anyone take the exam yet because it's not open yet. So when that information is available, we will definitely include that in MSAR. If you're looking for schools that will accept 2015 MCAT 2015 scores or not accept 2015 scores, that information is in MSAR right now.
Okay, I think that will wrap us up for the evening. Julie and Katie, thanks for your time and for all the information that you've shared. A couple of quick notes. First, if we didn't get to your question, there are other ways that you can get these questions answered. You can call the AAMC. Their phone number was listed earlier in the PowerPoint, but it is 202-828-0600. You can also email FAP or FAP at AAMC.org. And I will include that information as well in the follow-up email that will go out after this webinar. I believe it will go out tomorrow. So keep your eyes open for that in your inbox. And I'll also include a number of the links that were in this PowerPoint presentation, so you can follow up with those. Second, if you want to hear any of this again or share it with anybody else, as we mentioned earlier, we'll be posting it on the Student Doctor Network YouTube channel as soon as we can get it processed and up. You can also see all of our previous webinars there, which may also be of some help to you. You can subscribe to the channel on YouTube. You can also follow us on Facebook or Twitter, and we'll announce there when this video goes live. So thanks again. We hope that this was helpful to all of you, and have a great night.